Welcome to long-form content of Tech Bytes and News. This is a compilation on latest news and articles featured on Hacker News. You can find the original links of articles in the description. Please like and subscribe to support future content. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating experiment, pitting OpenAI's on-one models against each other in a game of codenames. Pretty cool, huh?
Absolutely. I've always been curious about how AI handles nuanced games like codenames, which rely heavily on shared knowledge and creative thinking. So what were the key findings?
Well, the results were surprisingly impressive. Over 20 games were played, and O1 consistently demonstrated a strong grasp of the game, as far beyond just random word association.
That's amazing. What specifically stood out?
One thing was on-one's superior general knowledge. Remember those times when a human clue giver might fail because of a lack of shared knowledge, like using Sputnik as a clue and nobody getting it? O1 avoided that pitfall completely. Its vast knowledge base allowed it to connect seemingly disparate words effectively.
I see. So it essentially leveraged its access to a massive database of information to its advantage. Clever.
Exactly. And that's not all. It even used 007 as a clue, which initially surprised me. I thought it might be breaking the rules.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I'd be curious to know how that worked.
Turns out, it's a perfectly valid clue according to the official rules, and even sparked a Reddit discussion. One's understanding of pop culture and its ability to apply that knowledge within the game's constraints is remarkable.
Wow, that's unexpected. So it's not just about brute force knowledge, but also about strategic application of that knowledge within the game's framework.
Precisely. Another example, it linked male, lawyer, line, and log with the single clue paper. That's brilliant. Even experienced human players might struggle to make that connection.
That's actually quite impressive. It shows a level of abstract reasoning and conceptual understanding that's quite advanced. I'm starting to wonder if O1 is cheating. Just kidding.
Ha. No cheating involved, I assure you. It just highlights on one's ability to identify underlying connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. It's truly fascinating to see how I can master complex games like this.
Definitely. This experiment really showcases the potential of AI in areas beyond simple data processing. It's about strategic thinking, creative problem solving, and even a bit of cultural understanding.
Absolutely. And you can even try it yourself. The website linked in the article lets you play against the AI. Give it a shot and see how you fare against O1.
I definitely will. Thanks for sharing this insightful analysis. This was a really fun discussion.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of AI and codenames. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into tandem computer systems fault tolerance, a topic that's both fascinating and incredibly relevant even today. The paper we're discussing, Fault Tolerance in Tandem Computer Systems, details their approach from hardware to software. It's a classic in the field.
Absolutely. I've always been intrigued by how Tandem achieved such high availability. What were their core design principles?
The core was modularity, fail-fast design, and single fault tolerance. They broke everything down into small, independent modules. If a module failed, it would immediately stop, preventing cascading failures. And crucially, they designed redundancy so that a single failure wouldn't bring the whole system down. Ingenious, right?
Brilliant. How did they implement this at the hardware level?
Well, they used a loosely coupled multiprocessor architecture with dual paths everywhere. Think dual buses, dual ported controllers for peripherals, even dual power supplies in some cases. This dual pathing was key to their fault tolerance. They even had a hierarchical, fault-tolerant local network, which they called Dynabus, and later Fox, to connect multiple processors. Amazing scalability for its time.
And the processors themselves? Were they specially designed for fault tolerance?
Not drastically different from traditional processors, but with crucial differences. The Dynabus interfaces were engineered to prevent a single CPU failure from taking down both buses. They paid close attention to power management and error checking, using parity checks and other techniques to ensure fail-fast behavior. They also incorporated retry mechanisms in later processors like the VLX to reduce service costs, but availability wasn't dependent on instruction retry. Clever engineering to balance cost and reliability.
So, how did they handle software failures? Process pairs, right?
Exactly. Process pairs were their software equivalent of hardware redundancy. Each process had a backup running on a different processor. The primary process would send checkpoints to the backup, and if the primary failed, the backup would seamlessly take over. Initially, they sent full-state images, but later moved to more efficient delta updates and function calls. A very elegant solution to transient software errors.
That's impressive. But what about larger scale applications? How did they manage the complexity?
They introduced the concept of process server classes. A server class is a group of processes performing the same function, distributed across multiple processors. This allowed for load balancing and fault tolerance at a higher level. If one process or even a whole processor failed, the server class would continue operating using the remaining resources. A truly scalable architecture.
I see. So they essentially built fault tolerance into every layer, from hardware to applications. But wasn't there a cost associated with this?
Of course, there was a cost. Duplicating hardware and software adds expense. But they cleverly mitigated this by focusing on price performance. Their modular design allowed for incremental upgrades, and their architecture scaled linearly, meaning adding more processors proportionally increased performance. They also made innovations in disk technology, like the V8 and XL8 drives, to reduce storage costs. A remarkable balance of reliability and cost-effectiveness.
It sounds like their approach to operations and maintenance was also crucial to their success.
Absolutely. They minimized operator intervention by automating many tasks. The system would self-reconfigure after failures. They also developed sophisticated monitoring and diagnostic tools, including the CHECK system in the VLX, which used an expert system to analyze error logs and predict potential failures. Proactive maintenance was a key part of their strategy.
This is all incredibly insightful. It's clear that Tandem's approach to fault tolerance was groundbreaking and had a lasting impact on the industry. Their focus on modularity, redundancy, and proactive maintenance is still relevant today, a true testament to their foresight.
Precisely. And that's why this paper remains a valuable resource for anyone interested in building highly available systems. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of Tandem's fault-tolerant systems. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating piece on the rise of AI-generated content, or AI slop, and how it's changing the online landscape. The author talks about a growing ability to spot AI-written text, even subtle cues. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I saw that article too. It's a bit unsettling, isn't it? The author defines AI slop as AI-generated content passed off as human-written, regardless of quality. That's a pretty broad definition.
Exactly. And it's not just about bad writing. Even well-written AI content, if presented as original human work, falls under this umbrella. The author notes that detecting AI slop has become increasingly difficult. Early AI-generated text was easy to spot, but now it's much more sophisticated.
He mentions a shift around 2024 where the quality improved significantly, making detection harder. He noticed this on LinkedIn, with robotic posts from a former colleague. Too many emojis, bulleted lists, things that felt off.
He emphasizes that using LLMs to augment writing is fine. He does it himself, but directly copying and pasting is where the line is crossed. It's about authorship and integrity. You know?
Totally. He sees this slop everywhere now, on X, formerly Twitter, Reddit. Even marketing AIs are generating these genuine interactions. It's like a whole new level of automated content generation.
He calls it slop paranoia, this constant subconscious scanning for AI-generated text. It's a bit of an immune response to the flood of AI-generated content. He even admits to having false positives, mistaking older, formulaic writing for AI-generated text.
That's a really interesting point. It highlights how pervasive this type of content is becoming. It's changing how we consume information online. It's almost like a new form of spam.
Precisely. And he brings up the idea of watermarking or detection methods for AI-generated content. He thinks it might be possible for completely unedited text, but much harder for mixed human/AI content.
I see. He also discusses the idea of writing for the AIs, influencing future models by writing consistently with a unique voice. Gwern and Tyler Cowen are quoted as advocating for this approach.
Yes, the idea is that by writing distinctively, you're shaping the future of AI. Your unique style and ideas become part of the training data, influencing how future models generate text. It's a fascinating concept.
It's almost like a form of digital legacy, shaping the future of AI with your own writing style. He uses Patrick McKenzie's dangerous professional persona as an example of how a distinctive style can become a meme, picked up and replicated by LLMs.
Exactly. It's a proactive approach to the changing landscape of online content. He suggests using RSS readers and curated sources to combat the slop. It's a call to action, really.
And his own approach? Write with a unique voice, edit thoroughly, be honest about AI usage, and write a lot. Solid advice.
Indeed. A very insightful article. It's a call for quality, authenticity, and a proactive approach to the future of online content in the age of AI. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this discussion. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating discovery by the Einstein probe. A puzzling cosmic explosion. It's a real game changer.
Wow, sounds exciting. What exactly makes this explosion so puzzling?
Well, the Einstein probe, just 3 months after launch, detected a burst of low energy, or soft, X-rays. This burst, lasting over 17 minutes, is classified as a fast X-ray transient, or FXRT, and it's been designated EP 240,315A. What's unusual is its origin and duration.
17 minutes? That's a long time for an X-ray burst, isn't it?
Exactly. And get this. Follow-up observations using ground-based telescopes like Gemini North and the Very Large Telescope pinpointed its location, a staggering 12.5 billion light-years away. That means we're seeing this event as it happened when the universe was only 10% of its current age. It's mind-blowing.
Incredible! So this is the most distant soft X-ray burst ever detected?
Yep, that's right. This is the first time we've detected soft X-rays of such long duration from such an ancient explosion. It's a huge deal for understanding the early universe. The detection itself is a testament to Einstein probe's capabilities.
I see. But what's the connection to gamma-ray bursts? GRBs.
Ah, that's where the puzzle deepens. Later analysis linked EP240315A to a known GRB 240315C, detected by other instruments. However, the X-ray burst, EP240315A, was observed more than 6 minutes before the gamma-ray burst, GRB 240315C.
Whoa, that's a significant time lag. What does that mean?
That's the million-dollar question. Usually, X-rays precede gamma rays in GRBs by only a few tens of seconds. This unusually long delay, combined with the extended duration of the X-rays, suggests we might need to revise our current understanding of how GRBs explode. It's a real challenge to our existing models.
So this discovery could fundamentally change our understanding of GRBs? That's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. It highlights the power of Einstein probe's superior sensitivity and wide field of view. This is just the beginning. There's a lot more to discover. The researchers involved are already planning further observations and analysis.
It's amazing how one discovery can open up so many new avenues of research. This really underscores the importance of international collaboration in space science, doesn't it?
Definitely. The Einstein probe is a joint mission between the Chinese Academy of Sciences, CAS, and ESA, with contributions from other international partners. This collaborative effort is crucial for tackling such complex cosmic mysteries. And it's just the beginning of what Einstein probe will reveal. We're in for a wild ride.
I can't wait to see what else it discovers. Thanks for breaking down this exciting news for us.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time with more exciting updates from the world of science and technology. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating article challenging common assumptions about Rails app performance. It's titled, The Mythical Iodine Monoxide-Bound Rails App, and it's a real eye-opener. Let's get started.
I'm eager to hear this. The title itself is intriguing. Is it arguing that Rails apps aren't as iodine monoxide bound as people think?
Precisely. The article argues that while database bottlenecks are common when scaling, this doesn't automatically mean the app spends most of its time waiting for I/O. It's a crucial distinction. Many conflate scalability with performance, throughput with latency.
Right, scalability is about handling more users, not necessarily faster response times, correct?
Exactly. The author points out that Rails, being stateless, scales horizontally easily. The real scaling challenge usually lies with the database, which often requires vertical scaling initially, and eventually sharding. That's the bottleneck, not necessarily slow database queries themselves.
So, the common performance issues in Rails, like missing indexes or n+1 queries, are actually bugs, not inherent limitations?
Yes, they're solvable problems, not fundamental characteristics of the framework. When properly optimized, database queries are often incredibly fast, fractions of a millisecond. The author uses the effectiveness of YJIT as evidence. Remember those impressive speedups reported by Discourse, Lobsters, Basecamp, and Shopify?
Oh yes, those significant latency reductions. If the apps were truly I/O bound, wouldn't YJIT's impact be minimal?
Precisely. The substantial improvements suggest a significant portion of execution time is spent in Ruby code itself, not waiting on I/O. The author even suggests that CPU starvation can often mask itself as I/O wait time.
How so?
Standard I/O timing measurements often include the time spent waiting for thread scheduling, garbage collection, or the OS scheduler. This makes it difficult to isolate the actual I/O time. It's a subtle but crucial point.
So misinterpreting this can lead to overestimating I/O bound nature and deploying with excessive concurrency, potentially worsening latency. That's a clever insight.
Absolutely. The article emphasizes that CPU-bound and I/O-bound workloads don't mix well. For smaller projects, it might be tolerable. But as you scale, separating them becomes crucial. Microservices help with this.
I see. And the article also addresses background job runners like Sidekick, which are often more I/O intensive. Even there, overconcurrency can hurt performance.
Exactly. The author highlights the importance of understanding the I/O to CPU ratio to choose the right execution model. Asynchronous for truly I/O-bound apps, threaded for I/O-heavy apps, and process-based for apps that aren't heavily I/O-bound. This even influenced Rails' decision to reduce Puma's default thread count.
It's a compelling argument for paying attention to Ruby's performance, even if the database is often the initial scaling bottleneck. The author's point about API design impacting performance is also important.
Absolutely. The article concludes by emphasizing the need to balance developer happiness with performance considerations. Usability and performance aren't mutually exclusive. Well, that's a wrap on the mythical iodine monoxide-bound Rails app. A thought-provoking read, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Thanks for breaking it down. A great discussion.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Paul Romer's insightful piece on base rate blindness, a fascinating concept with implications far beyond just spotting zebras in the Rockies. Let's get started.
I'm eager to hear this. Base rate blindness sounds intriguing. What's the core idea?
It's all about how we assess probabilities, you know? Romer uses the analogy of encountering a zebra in the Colorado mountains. The base rate, the likelihood of seeing a zebra versus a horse or mule, is incredibly low. Even if you see stripes, the base rate should heavily influence your conclusion. Bayes' theorem mathematically explains this.
So we tend to overreact to new information, ignoring the prior probability. Like, if I see something unusual, I jump to conclusions without considering how rare that thing actually is.
Exactly. Romer calls this base rate blindness. He even recounts a personal anecdote, encountering moose in an area where he'd never seen them before. His initial assumption, based on his past experience, the base rate, was that it couldn't be moose. But he was wrong.
That's a powerful example. It highlights the danger of assuming a base rate of 0, that something is impossible. It makes you wonder how often we do this in other areas of life, right?
Absolutely. He extends this to the academic world, comparing it to a reserve, where everyone is honest. Academics, he argues, might underestimate the likelihood of deception because their base rate for dishonesty is low within their environment, but that doesn't mean it's non-existent outside of it.
Interesting. So it's not just about zebras and moose. It's about how our experiences shape our expectations and can blind us to possibilities outside our usual range?
Precisely. Romer uses the story of Apollo Robbins, a master pickpocket, to illustrate this. Robbins exploits our limited cognitive capacity, overwhelming us with distractions to make us base rate blind to his actions. It's a fuck you slump moment, as Romer puts it, a sudden realization of how easily we're fooled.
A fuck you slump. I see. That's quite a vivid description. It really emphasizes the unexpected nature of these events.
It is. And Romer ends with a provocative question. Could the concerns about AI taking over be a form of base rate blindness? Or are we so focused on the immediate threat narrative that we're ignoring other, perhaps more subtle, possibilities?
That's a bold claim. It's certainly food for thought. It makes you question the narratives we accept without critical examination, considering the base rates involved.
Exactly. Romer's piece is a call to be more aware of our own biases and to consider the full range of possibilities, even the seemingly improbable ones. It's a reminder to pay attention to the base rate, but also to acknowledge that rare things can, and do, happen.
A very insightful and thought-provoking article. Thanks for breaking it down for us. It's a great reminder to challenge our assumptions.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Schrödinger, the biotech company that's caught the attention of NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, and frankly, the entire investment world. It's a fascinating story of quantum mechanics, AI, and a seriously complex valuation puzzle. Let's get started.
I'm eager to hear this. Schrödinger uses quantum mechanics for drug discovery, right? But their stock price has been underwhelming, to say the least. What gives?
Exactly. They're a unique beast, part software company, part biotech. They sell software to the top pharmaceutical companies, all of them in fact, and they also develop their own drugs. This dual nature makes valuation tricky. It's like trying to price a Ferrari with a side business selling tires. How do you weigh the two?
So the software side is doing well, generating significant revenue with high margins. But the biotech side, with its own drug pipeline, is still in the early stages, right? That uncertainty is probably a big factor in the low stock price.
Precisely. The biotech side is a classic high-risk, high-reward scenario. They've got 3 drugs in clinical trials, with data expected this year. That's a huge catalyst. But until we see those results, investors are understandably hesitant. Plus, they've had some misses and downgraded guidance in the past.
And then there's the AI angle. NVIDIA's Huang apparently had a heated discussion with Schrödinger's CEO about embracing AI more fully. What was that all about?
Yeah, that's a juicy bit. Huang wanted Schrödinger to leverage NVIDIA's GPUs more aggressively in their drug discovery process. Schrödinger's CEO, initially skeptical of the AI hype, has since seen the light, realizing the potential synergy between their physics-based platform and AI. It's a powerful combination.
I see. So the falling cost of GPUs is a tailwind for Schrödinger, allowing them to run more powerful simulations. And AlphaFold, the Nobel-winning protein structure prediction tool, has opened up a whole new world of drug targets for them.
Absolutely. AlphaFold is a game changer. It's dramatically expanded the universe of proteins they can target, leading to more opportunities for drug development. It's like suddenly having a map to a treasure chest, filled with potential cures.
But some analysts are concerned that Schrödinger is spreading itself too thin, juggling software, biotech, and materials science all at once. They suggest splitting the company might unlock more value.
That's a valid concern. They are doing a lot. The CEO, however, argues that the integrated platform is their key advantage, allowing them to generate unique data that fuels their AI efforts. He points out that others have tried this hybrid model and failed, like 23andMe's foray into drug discovery.
So, it's a high-stakes gamble. The clinical data coming out this year will be crucial. If their drugs show promise, the valuation could skyrocket. But if not, well...
Exactly. It's a high-risk, high-reward situation. The market seems to be struggling to value this multifaceted company. It's a fascinating case study in the intersection of biotech, software, and AI. But one thing is clear. Schrödinger is a company to watch closely.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking it down. It's a complex story, but you've made it clear and engaging.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into the dazzling world of Tamara de Lempicka and a 1920s art party, straight from Daily Art magazine. Get ready for some serious Art Deco glamour.
Oh, I'm so excited. De Lempicka's work is incredible. So what's the main vibe of this imaginary party?
It's less a party and more a curated collection of de Lempicka's most iconic subjects. Think sleek Bugattis, flapper dresses, and conversations buzzing with the energy of the roaring 20s. We're talking about the artist herself, arriving in her green Bugatti. A total power move, right?
Absolutely. A green Bugatti? That's pure Art Deco extravagance. And what about the guests? Who's on the guest list?
Well, we've got her cousins, Irene and Ludmilla de Clare, embodying the loose, boyish fashions of the era. Bobbed hair, drop-waist dresses, the whole shebang. Then there's the girl with a guitar, a beautiful allegorical figure, showcasing de Lempicka's masterful use of color, a stark contrast to the drab palettes of early Cubism, wouldn't you say?
I see. A fascinating blend of traditional motifs and modern aesthetics. And the gossips. What's their story?
Ah, yes, the gossips. Two stylish ladies in red hats and lipstick, representing the changing role of women. The 1920s, remember, was a time of rapid social change for women. Suffrage, new careers, and the rise of the flapper. It's all there, subtly woven into the painting.
It's amazing how much social commentary is packed into these seemingly simple portraits. And what about the more unconventional guests?
Right. We have the Duchesse de la Salle, dressed in a decidedly masculine style, reflecting the increasing visibility of homosexuality in the 1920s. And then there's the Marquis d'Afflito, a striking figure in a sharp suit, representing the sophisticated men of the era. Both portraits challenge traditional gender roles, don't they?
Definitely. It's a bold statement, especially considering the time period. And finally, the beautiful woman, Joan Jeffery. What makes her portrait so special?
Oh, Mrs. Bush is a masterpiece. Lost for 60 years, it showcases de Lempicka's unique blend of Cubist influences and her own distinctive style. The sensual, fashionable woman, but with a sharp contrast to the fragmented style of traditional Cubism. It's a glamorous escape into the decadent life of the 1920s elite.
It sounds like a truly unforgettable party, a visual feast of Art Deco glamour and social commentary. A perfect blend of style and substance.
Exactly. And that's just a glimpse into the world of Tamara de Lempicka. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this artistic journey into the roaring 20s. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of gradient descent optimization algorithms, a topic that's crucial for anyone working with neural networks. Get ready for some serious tech talk.
I'm pumped. Gradient descent. It's the backbone of so much deep learning, right? So let's start with the basics. What are the main variants we need to know?
Absolutely. We've got three primary variants: batch, stochastic, and mini-batch gradient descent. Batch uses the entire dataset for each gradient calculation. Incredibly accurate, but painfully slow for large datasets. Think of it as meticulously surveying the whole terrain before taking a single step.
Right, a very thorough but slow approach. Then stochastic is the opposite?
Precisely. Stochastic updates parameters after each training example. It's super fast, but the updates are noisy, leading to a lot of fluctuation. Imagine a frantic hiker constantly adjusting their path based on each tiny rock they encounter.
So mini-batch is the happy medium, right? A compromise between speed and accuracy?
Exactly. Mini-batch uses small batches of data for each update. It balances the speed of stochastic with the stability of batch. It's the Goldilocks method, just right for most deep learning tasks. It's the workhorse of modern deep learning.
I see. So what are some of the challenges we face even with mini-batch? I mean, it's not a perfect solution, is it?
No, not at all. One major challenge is choosing the learning rate. Too small, and convergence is agonizingly slow. Too large, and the algorithm bounces around the minimum without settling. Then there's the issue of the learning rate being uniform across all parameters. What if some parameters need bigger adjustments than others?
That makes sense. Different parameters, different needs. So how do we address these challenges? This is where the advanced optimization algorithms come in, right?
You got it. That's where things get really interesting. We have algorithms like momentum, which adds a fraction of the previous update vector to the current one, smoothing out oscillations and speeding up convergence. Think of it like a ball rolling downhill. It gains momentum.
Momentum. I get that analogy. It's intuitive. What about Nesterov accelerated gradient, NAG?
NAG is a clever improvement on momentum. Instead of blindly following the current gradient, it looks ahead, anticipating the next position of the parameters. It's like a smart ball that anticipates the terrain ahead and adjusts its speed accordingly. Much more efficient.
Interesting. And then we have the adaptive learning rate methods, right? Like AdaGrad, ADelta, RMS prop, and Atom.
Yes, these are game changers. AdaGrad adapts the learning rate for each parameter based on past gradients. It's great for sparse data, but its learning rate can shrink too aggressively. AdaDelta and RMS prop address this issue by limiting the window of past gradients considered. Atom combines the best of both worlds, adaptive learning rates and momentum, and is often the go-to choice.
So many algorithms. And then there's Atomax and Natom. How do they fit in?
Atomax is a generalization of Atom, using the L-infinity norm instead of the L2 norm for gradient scaling. It's more numerically stable. Now, Natom incorporates Nesterov momentum into Atom, giving it even faster convergence. It's like adding a turbocharger to an already powerful engine.
Wow. And AMS grad? I've heard that one mentioned.
AMS grad addresses a potential issue with Atom's convergence in some cases. Instead of using an exponential moving average of past squared gradients, it uses the maximum, ensuring a non-increasing step size. It's a refinement, but its overall superiority over Atom is still debated.
So much to consider. What about parallelization and distribution? How do we speed things up even more?
Excellent point. For massive datasets, we need to parallelize. Techniques like hog-wild, downpour SGD, and elastic averaging SGD offer different approaches to distributing the computational load across multiple processors or machines. TensorFlow is a powerful framework that facilitates this.
And finally, what are some additional strategies we can use to optimize SGD?
Good question. Shuffling data, using curriculum learning, batch normalization, early stopping, and even adding gradient noise can all significantly improve training. It's a whole ecosystem of techniques.
This has been an amazing overview. It's clear that choosing the right optimization algorithm is crucial for success in deep learning. Thanks for breaking it all down.
My pleasure. Remember, the best algorithm depends on your specific dataset and model. Experimentation is key. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into PUC 0.18.0, a significant release packed with exciting new features. The biggest news? The completely revamped drag-and-drop engine.
Wow, a new drag-and-drop engine? That sounds huge. What makes this one so special? Is it faster, more efficient, or something else entirely?
It's all of that and more. This isn't just an incremental improvement, It's a complete overhaul. It now boasts native support for CSS Grid and Flexbox, opening up a world of possibilities for creating complex and dynamic layouts. Think fluid layouts, folks. Fully backwards compatible, but infinitely more powerful.
Fluid layouts? That sounds intriguing. How does that work exactly? I'm picturing something incredibly flexible.
Precisely. You simply add your preferred display property, display, flex or display, grid, to your drop zone component, and Puck handles the rest. The drag and drop functionality seamlessly adapts to any layout you define. It's like magic, but it's actually clever engineering.
I see. So no more limitations with complex layouts? That's a game changer for page builders, right?
Absolutely. And it gets even better. This new engine also allows dragging between nested drop zones, something that was previously impossible. This opens up a whole new level of design complexity.
That's amazing. Are there any other significant improvements besides the drag and drop engine?
Oh, tons. For example, drop zones now dynamically adjust their height based on their content. They shrink to fit their children, providing a much more accurate preview. Plus, there's a configurable mine-empty height prop to control their size when empty.
That's a nice touch, making the preview more realistic. What about other usability enhancements?
We've added a new ActionBar.Label component to better organize custom action bars, a parent selector for easier navigation, and a handy CMD plus I hotkey to toggle interactivity in preview mode. Oh, and we've finally banished the dreaded position, fixed from the default layout.
Banished position? Fixed? Ooh, that's music to my ears. I've always found that style a bit of a headache. What about breaking changes? I always dread those.
There are a few, but mostly minor. The direction prop on drawer is now used differently, and some props on drawer.item are deprecated, but the release notes provide clear guidance on how to adapt.
Good to know they've addressed that. So overall, this release seems like a massive leap forward for Puck. It sounds like a must-have update for anyone using it.
Absolutely. The new drag and drop engine alone is a huge win, but the combination of all these improvements makes 0.18.0 a truly exceptional release. A big thank you to all the contributors and sponsors who made this possible.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking down this release for us. It's clear a lot of work went into this update.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating piece from The Economist about connecting the world's power grids. It's a bold idea, and one that could revolutionize how we generate and distribute electricity.
Absolutely. I'm particularly interested in the economic and environmental implications. The article highlights that less than 3% of the world's power is internationally traded. That seems incredibly low, doesn't it? What a missed opportunity.
Exactly. It's a huge missed opportunity. The core argument is that by connecting grids globally, we can leverage renewable energy sources more effectively. Imagine, sunny regions exporting solar power to areas with less sunlight, or windy regions supplying power to those with less wind. It's a beautiful picture of global energy cooperation.
But there are challenges, right? Coordinating international energy policy across different countries with varying regulations and priorities sounds incredibly complex.
You're right. The article mentions the recent shock in Norway, where a sudden drop in wind power led to increased imports of Norwegian hydropower. This caused a spike in domestic prices, and now there's political pushback against further exports. It highlights the political sensitivities involved.
So it's not just a technical challenge, but a political one too. Interesting. Does the article offer any solutions to these political hurdles?
Well, the article doesn't offer concrete solutions, but it suggests that international cooperation and agreements are crucial. It implies that the long-term benefits of cheaper and greener energy outweigh the short-term political difficulties. It's a long-term vision,
I see. But wouldn't this require massive infrastructure investments in new transmission lines and technologies? That's a huge financial undertaking.
Absolutely, that's a significant hurdle. The article doesn't delve into the specifics of financing, but it implies that the economic benefits, reduced energy costs, and increased access to clean energy would eventually justify the initial investment. It's a gamble, but a potentially very rewarding one.
It's a fascinating concept, though. The potential for a more stable and sustainable global energy system is compelling. But the political and economic realities are substantial. It's a complex issue.
Precisely. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. But the potential benefits, cheaper, cleaner energy for everyone, make it a conversation worth having. And, the article certainly sparks that conversation.
Definitely. It's a thought-provoking piece that highlights the potential of global energy cooperation. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into ActionIt, a game-changing GitHub Actions plugin for JetBrains IDEs. It's all about streamlining your workflow, folks.
Sounds exciting. So what's the core idea behind ActionIt? Why would developers want this?
Exactly. ActionIt brings the power of GitHub Actions directly into your IDE. Imagine this. No more context switching between your IDE and the GitHub website to monitor your workflows. Everything is right there, in your familiar environment.
That's a huge productivity boost. So, what are some key features? I'm particularly interested in how it handles multiple GitHub accounts.
Absolutely. It handles multiple accounts beautifully. You can set a default account or even specify different accounts for different projects. It uses the JetBrains GitHub plugin for account management, making it super smooth. But there's a caveat. Some organizations restrict permissions. So you might need a classic PAT, a personal access token, for seamless integration.
A PAT, you say? That's a good point to highlight. So, if I run into trouble, I should look into creating a PAT with RepoScope?
Precisely. They're working on automatic detection for that situation. But for now, that's the workaround. Beyond account management, you can view workflow runs, both current and past, with detailed information on jobs, steps, logs, and artifacts. Think of it as a comprehensive dashboard within your IDE.
Wow, that's impressive. And what about actually interacting with the workflows? Can you trigger them directly from the IDE?
Yes, you can rerun workflows, either all jobs or just the failed ones. And for workflows with the workflow_dispatch trigger, you can manually trigger new runs with custom input parameters, even selecting the branch or tag. It's incredibly powerful.
This sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any limitations or things still under development?
Well, they're working on some great improvements. They're tackling issues with extremely long logs, adding log search functionality, improving log formatting, and even adding support for managing actions environments, variables, and secrets directly within the IDE. It's constantly evolving.
That's fantastic. So getting started seems straightforward. Install the plugin, add your GitHub account, and ActionIt automatically detects your repositories and workflows. But, what if the automatic detection fails?
Good question. If it doesn't detect your workflows, it might be because your project isn't a GitHub repository or it lacks workflows. They're also open to suggestions for manual repository selection, so if that's a need, you can submit a feature request.
Excellent. And if I encounter any problems, I can submit a bug report, feature request, or support request through their GitHub repository. This sounds like a must-have tool for any JetBrains user working with GitHub Actions.
Absolutely. ActionIt is a true game changer for boosting developer productivity. It's a fantastic example of seamless integration and thoughtful design. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the Event Horizon Telescope's latest findings on M87, a supermassive black hole. It's been a year since their last major publication, and the new data is, mind-blowing.
I'm buzzing with anticipation. So, what's the big news? Did they finally capture a clearer image?
Well, yes and no. They've got more data from 2017 and 2018 observations, which is huge. They used a massive simulation library, 3 times bigger than before, with over 120,000 images. This allowed them to refine their understanding of the accretion disk's turbulence.
Accretion disk turbulence? Explain that like I'm 5. Or, a slightly less scientifically inclined podcast listener.
Okay, imagine a whirlpool, but instead of water, it's superheated gas swirling around the black hole. That's the accretion disk. The turbulence is like eddies and currents within that whirlpool, making it chaotic and unpredictable.
I see. So what did the turbulence tell them?
The brightest part of the ring of light around the black hole, the shadow, shifted 30 degrees counterclockwise between 2017 and 2018. This shift, they found, is directly linked to that turbulent accretion disk. It's a direct confirmation of their theoretical models.
That's incredible. So it's not just a static image, but a dynamic system they're observing?
Exactly. And the fact that the brightest part of the ring stayed on the bottom helps confirm the black hole's rotational axis is pointed away from Earth. This is a key piece of information.
And this new, larger image library was crucial for this analysis, right?
Absolutely. The increased data allowed them to compare different accretion models and determine which one best fits the observations from both years. They even found that gas spiraling into the black hole in the opposite direction of its rotation is more likely, due to higher turbulent variability.
So they're not just looking at a snapshot, but at the evolution of the system over time. This is a really significant step forward, isn't it, to assess? It's almost like watching a movie of a black hole, albeit a very slow-motion one.
Precisely. And the best part? They're already analyzing data from 2021 and 2022. This multi-year approach is going to give us an even deeper understanding of these incredibly complex systems. It's a testament to the power of international collaboration and cutting-edge technology.
It's truly amazing. This research really highlights the transformative power of long-term observation and data analysis. It's not just about getting a pretty picture. It's about understanding the fundamental physics governing these extreme environments.
Exactly. And that's why this research is so exciting. We're not just looking at a picture, we're witnessing the universe's most powerful forces at play. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of black holes. Goodbye, and keep looking up.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the art of crafting a successful tech blog based on Sean Gurdek's insightful post. Let's get started.
I'm eager to hear this. What's the secret sauce, according to Gurdek?
Well, the core idea is to generate controversy, but in a productive way. He argues that posts expressing unpopular opinions in the tech world tend to attract more readers and spark engaging discussions. Think, how to ship projects effectively, or what makes an engineer truly strong. These aren't vanilla topics. They're provocative.
Interesting. So it's not about rehashing old debates, but offering a fresh, maybe even contrarian perspective?
Exactly. He emphasizes the importance of having a clear opinion, something you genuinely believe in, even if it's not universally accepted. Unit testing is good? Boring. But a nuanced take on the limitations of unit testing? Now that's interesting.
But isn't there a risk of alienating readers with overly strong opinions?
That's a valid concern. Gurdek acknowledges this. He suggests that while avoiding caveats entirely might sound dictatorial, including too many weakens your argument. He believes sensible readers will understand the context, and those who don't won't be swayed by caveats anyway. It's a calculated risk.
So it's about striking a balance between assertiveness and transparency. He mentions being upfront about his experience, right? Linking his resume, for example.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. He believes in being honest about his background and experience level to manage reader expectations. He even welcomes criticism on Hacker News, seeing it as a valuable feedback mechanism. It's a brave approach.
And what about the writing process itself? How does he approach crafting these posts?
He advocates for a quick drafting approach, prioritizing getting ideas down quickly. He doesn't overthink it initially. He then revises thoroughly, often multiple times, before publishing. He keeps several drafts going concurrently, allowing some to mature while others are prioritized.
It's about iteration and refinement. And what about the technical aspects of his blog? He uses Gatsby, right?
Yes, Gatsby and React, but purely for historical reasons. He admits it's not ideal, but it works. He prioritizes content creation over infrastructure tinkering. He uses Netlify for deployment and analytics, recognizing the value of tracking reader engagement.
So the takeaway is controversial opinions, transparency, iterative writing, and a focus on content over infrastructure. It's a practical, results-oriented approach.
Precisely. And don't forget the RSS feed. He emphasizes its importance for attracting and retaining readers. He learned that the hard way. It's a crucial element, often overlooked. And that's a wrap on Sean Gurdek's insights into tech blogging. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News.
Thanks for the insightful discussion. Until next time.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating project, building your own Sinclair ZX80. This isn't your average build. It's a journey back to the golden age of home computing. Get ready for some serious retro tech.
A ZX80? Wow, that's seriously old school. I'm intrigued. What makes this project so special? Is it just nostalgia, or is there a real technical challenge here?
Oh, it's way more than nostalgia. The ZX80 is incredibly minimalist. It's practically a testament to how little hardware you need for a functional computer. The author, Grant Searle, highlights this. Only the bare minimum to get a working computer with a TV display, and no single dedicated IC in sight. That's a huge challenge for a build.
So it's a challenge in efficient design? I see. What are we talking about in terms of components? Is it readily available stuff, or are we hunting down rare parts?
Mostly readily available stuff, thankfully. The core components are a Z80 processor, RAM, and a ROM. Searle even provides options for using readily available EPROMs instead of the original ROM. He's meticulously documented the whole process, including multiple versions of PCB layouts and even stripboard options. It's incredibly thorough.
Impressive. But even with readily available parts, building something this old must present some unique hurdles. What are some of the potential pitfalls?
Absolutely. Searle himself warns this isn't for absolute beginners. You'll need to program your own EPROM image, and an oscilloscope is highly recommended for debugging. There are also some quirks in the original schematic that Searle has painstakingly corrected in his redrawn version. He's even identified errors in the original Sinclair documentation.
So it's not just a simple plug-and-play situation. This is a real project, requiring a good understanding of electronics and some serious attention to detail.
Exactly. The level of detail is amazing. He's got detailed circuit diagrams, PCB foil layouts, component placement guides, even keyboard overlays. He's even provided multiple versions of the PCB layouts, iteratively improving accuracy over the years. This is a labor of love.
It sounds like a fantastic project for someone with the right skills and patience. I'm almost tempted to try it myself. Does Searle provide any software to go along with this hardware build?
Yes, he has a dedicated software page with some ZX80 games, including a flicker-free Space Invaders. Plus, he points to resources for ZX81 software, which you can adapt if you choose to upgrade your ZX80 to a ZX81 using his NMI generator. The whole thing is a complete package.
This is incredible. It's a complete historical record, a detailed guide, and a challenging project all rolled into one. It's a fantastic resource for anyone interested in retro computing or just a good electronics challenge.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the enduring appeal of classic technology and the dedication of hobbyists like Grant Searle. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of ZX80 homebrewing. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating analysis of North England's economic underperformance, a piece that really challenges conventional wisdom. It's explosive!
I'm eager to hear this. The title alone, Why North England is Poor, is provocative. What's the core argument?
The author argues that North England's economic woes aren't simply due to a human capital crisis, as some suggest, but are rooted in a long history of systemic disadvantages stemming from centuries of centralized power in southeast England. It's a powerful indictment.
Centuries? Wow. Can you elaborate on the historical factors?
Absolutely. The piece traces it back to the Norman conquest, highlighting how power has consistently been concentrated in the southeast. Then, the ban on northern universities for 2 centuries in the 1600s is cited as a major setback, hindering intellectual and economic development. Even the Industrial Revolution, while initially boosting the North, is framed as a double-edged sword.
A double-edged sword? How so?
While the North thrived industrially, its distance from London and the lack of universities meant it lacked the intellectual capital to transition smoothly to a post-industrial economy. The author argues that the subsequent nationalization and privatization of key industries, culminating under Thatcher, further weakened local control and concentrated power in the South. A devastating combination.
So Thatcher's policies are presented as a critical turning point?
Precisely. The author contends that Thatcher's policies, while promoting free markets in the private sector, created a central government monopoly on power, effectively stifling the North's ability to compete. The abolition of metropolitan counties, privatization of services, and the removal of local taxation powers are all highlighted as key factors. It's a really strong critique.
I see. But isn't there a counter-argument? Surely factors like education and skills play a role?
The author directly addresses that. He presents data challenging the notion that human capital is the primary barrier. He argues that the lack of investment in infrastructure and R&D in the North, driven by the central government's preference for the Southeast, is a far more significant factor. He even uses AI to analyze government policies and finds evidence supporting his claims.
That's interesting. So, what solutions are proposed?
The author advocates for 3 key steps: shifting public infrastructure investment to the North, redirecting R&D spending to the North, and decentralizing government power, either by shrinking the central government or relocating it partially to the North. Simple, yet profound. He emphasizes the need for a competitive dispersal of power, rather than a centralized monopoly.
It sounds like a call for a fundamental shift in British political economy. A bold vision. Quite a compelling argument, though.
Absolutely. The author concludes by highlighting the unsustainable nature of the current system, emphasizing the growing fiscal burden on the Southeast to support the economically weaker North. He expresses cautious optimism, pointing to pockets of success in places like Manchester, demonstrating the potential for growth with even modest changes in government policy. A powerful message of hope amidst a stark reality.
It's a fascinating and thought-provoking analysis. Thanks for summarizing it.
My pleasure. And thank you for listening to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you'll join us again for our next deep dive into the world of technology and current events. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating and slightly disappointing story about Devin, the AI software engineer. Apparently, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Oh, I saw that headline. Hype versus reality, right? So what's the lowdown on this first AI software engineer?
Well, Devin, created by Cognition AI, was touted as this revolutionary tool that could do everything from writing and testing code to fixing bugs and even ordering lunch. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? They even claimed it could handle end-to-end app development.
Wow, ambitious. But the reality check came from independent testing, correct?
Exactly. A team from Answer.ai put Devin through its paces, giving it 20 tasks. And the results? A bit underwhelming, to say the least.
How underwhelming. Spill the beans.
Only 3 out of 20 tasks were completed successfully. 3! That's a 15% success rate. For a tool marketed as a full-fledged AI software engineer, that's concerning.
Yikes, I see. So what kind of tasks did it fail at? Were they exceptionally difficult?
Some were straightforward, like deploying multiple applications to Railway. Devin apparently didn't understand that wasn't supported, and spent a day trying impossible approaches. It just kept going, hallucinating features that don't exist.
That's a classic AI hallucination problem. It highlights the limitations of current AI, even in specialized domains like software engineering. It seems the autonomous aspect, while initially appealing, became a major drawback.
Precisely. The researchers noted that Devin's polished user experience was impressive when it worked, but that was the problem. It rarely did. The inability to predict which tasks would succeed was also a huge issue. Similar tasks would sometimes succeed and sometimes fail in incredibly complex ways.
So it's not just about the success rate, but also the unpredictable nature of its performance. That makes it unreliable, even dangerous, for real-world applications. What about Cognition AI's response to all this?
Radio silence. They haven't responded to requests for comment. Which, is not a good look. This whole situation underscores the importance of independent verification and testing of these AI tools before widespread adoption.
Absolutely. Marketing hype can be very misleading. This Devin case serves as a cautionary tale. We need more rigorous testing and transparency from AI developers.
You're right. It's a reminder that even with impressive advancements in AI, we're still in the early stages, and there's a lot of work to be done to ensure reliability and avoid overpromising. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll be back tomorrow with more tech news. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating job posting. Research engineer at Arsenal Football Club. It's not your average data science role, folks. Get ready.
Ooh, Arsenal. I'm already intrigued. What makes this position so unique?
Well, it's not just about crunching numbers. It's about using cutting-edge AI to improve Arsenal's on-field performance. We're talking about applying deep learning, transformers, diffusion models, reinforcement learning, even geometric deep learning, to everything from player recruitment to match strategy. Imagine the possibilities.
That's intense. So, they're not just looking for someone who can code. They need someone who understands the nuances of football analytics, right?
Exactly. They need someone who can bridge the gap between cutting-edge AI research and the practical application on the pitch. The job description emphasizes collaboration with coaches, analysts, and scouts. It's a truly multidisciplinary role. They even mention using the models to help with loan placements for academy players. That's pretty specific.
I see. The data they're working with sounds incredibly diverse too. Spatiotemporal, image/video, text, tabular data. That's a huge challenge in terms of scalability and performance.
Absolutely. The job posting highlights the need for someone comfortable with the entire tech stack, from model development to deployment and integration into existing applications. They mention React.js and PySpark, a full-stack engineer's dream, or nightmare, depending on your perspective.
I'm a little surprised they're not specifying experience with a particular cloud provider. Given the scale of data, you'd think that would be crucial.
That's a good point. Maybe they're flexible on that front, or perhaps they'll discuss it during the interview process. But the emphasis on PyData fluency, Python, NumPy, Pandas/Polars, is pretty clear. And they want experience with PyTorch, JAX, Keras, or TensorFlow. It's a pretty comprehensive list.
Definitely. And the emphasis on communication is interesting. They want someone who can explain complex technical concepts to both technical and non-technical audiences. That's a valuable skill, often overlooked.
Totally. Plus, they're looking for someone highly independent and self-motivated, able to work effectively in a geo-distributed team. It sounds like a dream job for the right person. A challenging, impactful role with a world-famous football club. Who wouldn't want that?
True, and the benefits package sounds pretty sweet too. Generous holiday allowance, flexible hybrid working, priority match tickets. It's almost too good to be true.
Almost. But remember, the application deadline is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. So if you're a data scientist with a passion for football and a knack for cutting-edge AI, get your application in. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating piece from the Electronic Frontier Foundation about Texas's proactive approach to data privacy enforcement. It's a really interesting development, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The article highlights Texas's first lawsuit under the Texas Data Privacy and Security Act, targeting Allstate for its handling of driver location data. It's a significant step, especially considering the sensitivity of that kind of information. Intriguing.
Exactly. The lawsuit alleges Allstate secretly collected and sold massive amounts of driving data using an SDK embedded in third-party apps like Life360. They allegedly targeted apps that already use location data to avoid raising red flags. A sneaky tactic, to say the least.
Yeah, that's pretty underhanded. The article mentions the data collected is highly sensitive. What makes it so sensitive, specifically?
Right. It's not just about location. It's the combination of location data with driving behavior. This paints a very detailed picture of someone's life, revealing routines, habits, and even potentially vulnerable moments. It's a serious privacy breach. I see what you mean.
So the EFF is applauding Texas's action, but also pointing out flaws in the TDPSA itself. They mention the right to cure provision, which allows companies to avoid penalties if they fix the violation within 30 days. That seems problematic, doesn't it?
Totally. It's a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card, as the EFF puts it. It essentially rewards companies for their initial wrongdoing. While Texas is taking action, the law itself could be stronger. They also highlight that only the Attorney General can file lawsuits under the TDPSA, limiting citizen action.
That's a valid criticism. A stronger law would empower individuals to protect their own data. The article mentions other states are also establishing data privacy units, like New Hampshire and California. Is this a sign of a broader trend?
Definitely. 19 states now have data privacy laws, and more are stepping up enforcement. The fact that Texas, with its relatively weak law, is still taking action, suggests a growing awareness of the importance of data privacy and holding companies accountable. It's a positive development.
It's encouraging to see states taking the lead, especially given the slow pace of federal action. This case sets a precedent, hopefully inspiring other states to strengthen their laws and actively enforce them. It's a great start.
Precisely. The Allstate case is a wake-up call. It highlights the need for stronger, more comprehensive data privacy laws across the board, and the importance of robust enforcement mechanisms. We need to protect individuals' data from exploitation. It's crucial.
Absolutely. Thanks for breaking down this important story for us. It's a complex issue, but this conversation has shed light on some key aspects, I see.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion informative and engaging. Have a great day and stay informed.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Chimera Linux, a new distribution aiming for a simplified desktop experience. It's a fascinating project, built from the ground up with a unique philosophy. Let's unpack it.
I'm eager to hear this. What makes Chimera Linux so different from other distros? Is it just another systemed-less distro, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's much more than just a systemed alternative. It's fundamentally about simplicity and transparency. The developers, led by Q66, a Void Linux veteran, wanted to eliminate legacy cruft. They're using BSD tools not just for licensing, but primarily for their smaller code size and reduced complexity. Think of it as a lean, mean Linux machine.
Interesting. So they're using Mustel instead of glibstack. That's a significant choice, impacting compatibility, right?
Exactly. Muzzle cuts down on dependencies massively. This simplifies the entire system, making it easier to manage and understand. But yes, it means some precompiled binaries, especially proprietary software, might not work. They suggest Flatpak as a workaround for that. Clever!
And the systemed avoidance? That's a bold move. Many consider systemed essential for modern Linux. What's their reasoning?
They find systemd's implementation rather messy, but they acknowledge its functional improvements. However, they believe the cost of maintaining compatibility with systemd's expectations outweighs the benefits in their pursuit of simplicity. They're not against systemd itself, just its complexity within their design goals. They even explicitly distance themselves from the more extreme anti-systemd community.
So what replaces systemd, and how does that affect the user experience?
They use Dinit, another init system focused on portability. It provides core system service supervision, but delegates other tasks to other programs. For user session tracking, they've forked Login into eLogin, with plans for a more universal API later. Day-to-day use isn't drastically different, except for using DOAS instead of sudo. But for developers, some tools like GCC aren't packaged for all architectures initially, though that's changing.
That's a trade-off, simplicity versus immediate access to all the tools. What about the installation process? Sounds like it's not your typical graphical installer experience.
Yeah. It's manual. Very manual. Think Arch or Gen 2 levels of manual configuration. You're partitioning disks with CFdisk, setting up file systems, mounting them, and then using Chimera Bootstrap inside a CRUT. They provide live images with Gnome or KDE to ease the process, but it's still a hands-on experience. No graphical installer yet.
So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Who is the target audience then?
Experienced Linux users, definitely. People who appreciate a minimalist approach and are comfortable with command-line tools. It's not a distro for someone looking for a plug-and-play experience. But for those who value transparency and control, it offers a unique and potentially rewarding experience. The project is also actively seeking contributors, and they've already seen significant growth in their community.
It's an interesting experiment, a testament to the flexibility of Linux. What's next for Chimera Linux?
They're focusing on smoothing out the rough edges, particularly around service management without System Day. Replacing Elogen with a custom solution is a key goal. They're using IRC and Matrix for communication, and have a growing Reddit community and Mastodon presence. They're aiming for a 1.0 release sometime in 2026, but given their rapid growth, it might be sooner. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking down Chimera Linux for us. It's a project worth keeping an eye on.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Onnit, an open-source AI chat assistant for macOS. It's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, I saw this on GitHub. It sounds like a game changer. Local mode, support for multiple providers. That's a big deal, right?
Absolutely. The core idea is universal access. Think about it. AI assistants everywhere on your computer, not just in a browser or specific app. That's a huge leap forward in usability.
And the provider freedom is key. No lock-in to a single provider like OpenAI. You can switch between Anthropic, Google AI, XAI, even local models.
Exactly. Plus, the emphasis on local processing is huge for privacy. Your data stays on your machine unless you explicitly choose otherwise. That's a refreshing change.
I see. So it uses Ollama for local models, right? How does that integration work?
Yeah, Ollama is the key to the local mode. You install Ollama, and Onnit automatically detects your local models through its API. It's pretty seamless.
That's clever. What about the features? Besides local and multi-provider support, what else stands out?
Well, there's file upload with drag and drop, which is super convenient, plus a chat history, customizable shortcuts, even a default command, plus 0 hotkey to launch the chat window. Pretty slick.
I'm a little concerned about the license. It's Creative Commons non-commercial, right? Does that limit its use?
You're right to point that out. It's a non-commercial license for V1. They're clear that future versions might have paid premium features, but local chat will always remain free, and the source code will stay open for customization. It's a fair compromise.
I see. And what about the future roadmap? What are they planning?
Oh, they have big plans. Auto context, local RAG, local type ahead, basically making it even more integrated with your computer. Plus, expanding to Linux and Windows, adding more model providers, and bundled Ollama integration. It's ambitious, but exciting.
It certainly is. So overall, Onnit seems like a really promising project. The focus on local processing, multi-provider support, and the open-source nature is really appealing.
Absolutely. It's a breath of fresh air in the AI assistant space. The developers are clearly thinking about user needs and privacy, which is something we don't always see. Definitely worth checking out.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking it down.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a really cool GitHub project, a set of Krita brushes designed to create 3D paint effects. It's all about adding depth and realism to your digital artwork, folks.
Oh, I'm excited. Krita is my go-to painting software. So what makes these brushes so special? Is it just a new set of textures or something more advanced?
It's way more than just textures. These aren't your average brushes. They're designed to work in a unique way, using RGBA manipulation to simulate 3D effects. Think of them as precision filters. You paint normally, then use these brushes to add depth and metallic effects on top.
RGBA manipulation? Could you elaborate on that a bit? I'm familiar with RGB, but what's the A's all about?
Sure, the A stands for alpha, which controls the transparency. These brushes cleverly use the alpha channel to add a sense of depth and dimension. It's a really clever approach to creating 3D-like effects without relying on traditional 3D modeling techniques.
I see. So it's like adding a layer of information on top of the existing color information? That's pretty neat.
Exactly. And get this, there's even a sandpaper rub eraser, which is described as the world's first RGBA eraser. It's an eraser that interacts with the texture of your brushstrokes. using edge detection to selectively remove paint based on the underlying texture. Pretty innovative, right?
Wow, that sounds incredibly useful for refining details and creating realistic wear and tear effects. But how does the paint flattening function work? I'm curious about that.
That's still experimental, but the idea is to reduce the thickness of existing paint strokes. It's a bit tricky though. The creator mentions that it might produce odd colors on non-opaque areas, so you might need to lock your layer's transparency to avoid issues. It's all part of the experimental nature of these brushes, you know?
Interesting. So it's not a perfect system yet, but the potential is huge. What about installation? Is it complicated?
Not at all. It's a simple 4-step process. Install Krita if you haven't already. Go to Settings, Manage Resource Libraries, import the bundle file, and restart Krita. It's that easy.
That's fantastic. Easy installation is a huge plus. So are these brushes only for metallic effects, or can they be used for other things as well?
While they're particularly well suited for metallic effects, the creator suggests they can be used for a variety of purposes. The core functionality of adding RGBA and the unique eraser can be applied creatively to many different painting styles.
I'm definitely going to check these out. Thanks for highlighting this project. The combination of innovative techniques and ease of use is really appealing.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check out the credits. The creator gives a shout out to several other artists whose brushes were used in the demonstration images. It's a great example of community collaboration in the digital art world. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating 524 error encountered on the website r.gina.ai. It's a timeout error, which, while seemingly simple, can point to some pretty complex underlying issues. Let's unpack it.
A 524 error, huh? That's a Cloudflare error code, right? So the problem isn't necessarily on the r.gina.ai server itself, but somewhere in the connection between Cloudflare and the origin server?
Exactly. Cloudflare acts as a reverse proxy, so a 524 means Cloudflare successfully connected to r.gina.ai, but the origin server, that's r.gina.ai itself, didn't respond within the allotted time. The error message explicitly states, the origin web server timed out responding to this request.
So what could cause that timeout? Is it a simple overload or something more sinister, like a database issue perhaps?
It could be many things. The error page suggests several possibilities. An overloaded background task, a database problem, or even an application issue stressing the server's resources. It's a classic case of the server being unable to handle the request load within the time limit set by Cloudflare. Think of it like a restaurant. If the kitchen is overwhelmed with orders, they'll take longer to serve, potentially leading to customers timing out and leaving.
I see. Interesting analogy. So the error page also mentions troubleshooting steps for both website visitors and website owners. For visitors, it's a simple, try again later. But for the website owners, it's a bit more involved, right? They need to investigate their server resources.
Absolutely. For the website owners, the advice is to work with their hosting provider or development team. They need to pinpoint the bottleneck. Is it the database struggling to keep up? Is a background process hogging resources? Or is there a flaw in the application itself? The error page even helpfully links to additional Cloudflare troubleshooting documentation.
Right. And the error details also include the Cloudflare Ray ID 908157B1 add 45CE57, which is useful for Cloudflare's own internal debugging, I presume, and it shows the user's IP address, although it's hidden by default for privacy reasons. Smart.
Precisely. The Ray ID is crucial for Cloudflare support to track down the specific event and investigate further. The IP address is useful for context, but they've wisely hidden it by default to protect user privacy. It's a good example of balancing debugging needs with security and user data protection.
So in summary, a 524 error on r.gina.ai points to a server-side timeout issue, likely due to resource constraints. The website owners need to investigate their server's performance and address the underlying cause. It's a reminder that even seemingly simple error messages can hide complex problems.
Exactly. And that's why understanding these error codes and their implications is so important for both website developers and users. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into some fascinating life lessons from a computing legend, David Patterson, reflecting on his 50-year career. It's a really insightful piece, packed with wisdom. Let's jump right in.
I'm eager to hear this. 50 years in computing, that's an incredible span. What are some of the key takeaways from his reflections?
Well, the article is structured around 16 life lessons, split between people-focused and career-focused advice. He emphasizes the importance of family, placing it firmly above career ambitions. He recounts a powerful anecdote about a colleague's regret over prioritizing work over family, a sentiment that deeply resonated with him. He actively involved himself in his sons' lives, and now enjoys close proximity to his family. It's a powerful message about work-life balance.
That's a really important point, especially in our fast-paced tech world. What else stood out?
Absolutely. He also stresses the importance of choosing happiness. He challenges the traditional American idea that happiness equals wealth, highlighting that true happiness comes from strong relationships, helping others, spiritual fulfillment, and loving your work. He even mentions his continued enjoyment of sports, emphasizing that even simple pleasures contribute to overall well-being. It's a refreshing perspective.
I see. Interesting. So it's not just about career success, but a holistic approach to life?
Exactly. He then delves into career-specific advice. He highlights the importance of prioritizing important tasks over urgent ones, using Covey's time management matrix as a framework. He emphasizes the role of passion in achieving great things and the importance of teamwork. He stresses the need for bold vision and taking risks, quoting the phrase, "Fortune favors the bold." It's all about strategic thinking and proactive behavior.
I found his point about benchmarks shaping a field particularly insightful. He talks about both good and bad benchmarks, right? How does that apply to careers?
Yes. He uses the example of a company's 10-step technical ladder, suggesting it discouraged risk-taking. He contrasts this with the Bell Labs model, which he viewed as more conducive to innovation. He argues that bad benchmarks can warp careers, leading people to prioritize safety over impact. It's a really thought-provoking point.
Absolutely. It makes you think about the metrics we use to evaluate success, both personally and professionally. What about his comments on seeking honest feedback?
He strongly advocates for seeking honest feedback, even from those who might not be fans of your work. He emphasizes the importance of separating criticism of the work from criticism of the person. He shares his own practice of sending drafts to a wide range of reviewers, including those who might offer unvarnished opinions. It's all about continuous improvement.
That's great advice. And what about his final piece of advice? The 9 magic words. That sounds intriguing.
Ah, yes. After 57 years of marriage, he shares his secret. I was wrong. You were right. I love you. No substitutions. He says it's about acknowledging mistakes, valuing your partner's perspective, and expressing love. It's a simple yet powerful message about maintaining strong relationships.
That's beautiful, actually. It's a reminder that strong relationships are fundamental to a fulfilling life, both personally and professionally. This has been a really insightful discussion. Thanks for sharing these key takeaways from David Patterson's article.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion as insightful as we did. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the daily roundup of Tech Bytes and News. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.